And we're live. Hello everybody and welcome to the Abyss. Today we'll be we'll be making some art. I'm gonna try and work on my OC some tonight. I know it's been a while since I've done this series, but I really just wanted to take a slow break and play some music. I know that F's with the Facebook side of things, so I do apologize if you're gonna want to watch this, played back. But for Facebook specifically, I would recommend going to my YouTube channel. If you like it on Facebook, go over to YouTube or Twitch in the next 14 days before that VOD gets deleted, and you'll be able to watch with all the audio and all the rants that I'm about to go on. But with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and go back into Sprite and turn down that music a little bit. And let me know if the music's too loud or not loud enough or what have you. But I'm just going to be doing stuff in Sprite. I've got my list of topics, listo-topico of things that I want to rant about. With Overwatch, its current state of things. I also have an entire 3-page documentary of things that I would rework on Heroes. So if I pause and I stop typing or whatever, just know that might be why. Now it's too quiet. I need to turn it up a little bit. I have this weird dynamic where I have a train of thought going along inside of my head, but then I will just lose it because I'm looking at something, or I'll just stop speaking because my brain's like, you need to concentrate now. Concentration, you must. So I've made just a little portrait. In reality, I should probably make a different sizing, but I wanted just to kind of, I have one that I was working on, which was this guy here, but I wanted to kind of just start over from the top so that I can show the entire process on stream, not leaving anything behind, and at the same time, it allows me to kind of just do the basic of the basics over again, while discussing what I wanted to about Overwatch 2. I don't feel like I accurately got my thoughts out regarding the announcement from Blizzard about the Bastion and Sombra reworks. Overall, my opinion on those kind of go back to just being good changes. I mean, I'm not gonna be upset when I think they are doing things in a semi-decent direction. That's not what I wanted. There we go. All right. But I definitely think the number one issue, like positive things first. The willingness to that's a terrible line, to finally be like, you know, maybe, just maybe, we weren't right about some of the, that's too extreme, the design choices. Let me also actually do this. And maybe, just maybe, we need to consider not making every hero the most unique character in the world. Maybe just having some overlap is totally natural and totally fine. And honestly, good on them. Like, from the bottom of my heart, thank you, Blizzard, for recognizing that. Like, good where, you know, good needs to be recognized where good is done. And I think they finally recognize the fact that in order to make it competitive, having hero choice being more about soft counters with similar characteristics instead of hard countering unique characteristics is better for the overall health of the game. Oops, I clicked wrongly. I need to move this out this way more anyway. And I think they've had a hard time with that concept purely because they, as I've said before, they're like Warframe devs in disguise. They really, really, really just want to make every single character the best character ever. Like, they just want them to do literally everything. And as far as balancing goes, that's no. Like, even I can tell that that's not the... It just doesn't feel good for, like, anybody. Let me go ahead and just start with a parallelism here. See if I can't make... What I'm trying to do here is... Oh, I'm writing the blue. Whoops. That's not what I want. What was I saying? Something Bastion Sombra reworks being unique. Well, yeah, let me clarify that. Let me define my terms a little bit there. But what do I mean by the devs are more willing now to, with this change, they're showing that they're more willing to be open to having characters not be so unique. And one thing, like, just to point it out, Bastion, the grenade. I've said it a couple of times now, but the grenade being just existing really is enough to kind of show that they're okay with heroes having abilities that overlap. And what I mean by that is Junkrat. Like, why, like, up to this point, there hasn't been many heroes that have had, like, similar functioning roles. Because, like, even with a Hanzo Widow, in that comparison, it's projectile versus hit scan. Ashe Widow, it's a different range with more fall off on the Ashe side. Ashe Soldier, different styles of shooting, assault weapon versus marksman. McCree Ashe, same thing, and different ranges. Reaper and I'm choosing Ashe because she's sort of like the middle ground, in my opinion, of shooter DPS. Like if I were to pull up the list of heroes here, for DPS, you have Ashe, marksman rifle, Bastion, assault rifle with a sentry gun, Doomfist, shotgun for clicks that have individual reload, with him being focused on his ability usage. Echo, tri-beam shotgun, I guess, that has 0 fall off, and a sticky grenade. Like that's I can see that's similar because it is a grenade, quote unquote, but it's a linear projectile, much akin to, it's like a combination of Farah's rockets and an actual sticky grenade, like from Junkrat. And then her beam is like a Symmetra beam, but it ramps based upon health percentage instead of, like, those overlaps I like. Being similar, but being different. The issue I have with it is the actual damage numbers, to be fair. Genji, shurikens, projectile, different speed from any really other projectile. I mean, that's what makes each projectile kind of unique. Hanzo, projectile with sniper. Junkrat, grenade that lobs in an arc. McCree, a short to mid range pistol fighter that has a stun. Farah, who is the only airborne, well, used to be the only airborne before Echo fighter on the DPS side. Reaper, shotgun, super close range who can TP. Like, only Symmetra is the only other, well, technically Sombra as well. But, like, soldier, assault rifle, Sombra, SMG, Symmetra, beam that ramps up, Torb, rivet gun that lobs in an arc, as well as a shotgun, Tracer, dual machine pistols, and Widowmaker, and assault rifle, but also a sniper, which is her primary weapon. Like, the DPS actual gun mechanics are all wildly different. And where I was going with that is that it doesn't need to be like that. Like, if Bastion just had an assault rifle as his primary and we forget the sentry mode, right? Why do we need the sentry mode? I do like what they did with the sentry mode because I think it is better than what it currently is. But I still think there's a lot that could be improved upon and make it still relatively balanced. And his ult's pretty good, but I disagree with this, the lobbing of the sticky grenade. Like it'll make for interesting plays, but a single grenade bouncing around a corner is like, it's just a watered down version of scatter arrow, and it combines kind of the BS-ness of Scatter Arrow with the BS-ness of Junkrat primary fire. I don't think people, like, I think it'd be interesting to use, but more times than not, you're going to get BS kills with it that are going to make people upset. And I don't think it fits well into the role of DPS, which at this point, if they're serious about making this more competitive, and from the things that I've seen, my understanding of the game, why would they not just lean heavily into the first-person shooter side of this game? I think that's really where they're going to get the most benefit out of what they're doing. And what do I mean by that? Let me go ahead and define that a little bit, I guess. I think the correct, like, action, I guess, if you will, is, go ahead and define his neck. I am also trying to focus on this, so if I'm saying some dumb things, forgive me. It's a terrible line. Let me start on this side. But if they're gonna balance Bastion, I think they need to lean more into the mobility side of things. I think being able to reposition, like the DPS role as a role, which, keep in mind its origins, is in 2 different roles. DPS didn't used to just be DPS. Like, DPS used to be defense and offense. So some heroes were built with the idea of you're a stationary, bunkery kind of person who can just hold an angle, right? And nothing gets past your angle. You can lob off an entire zone, like how the original envision of Wrecking Ball's mines, I'm assuming. Like, he would be a defensive tank in terms of how his ult works. You just denied this zone, more or less. But I can't seem to get this right. I'm gonna go ahead and just move on to this. But that's not what he, like, because the issue with that is the rest of his kit isn't defensive. It's go in, balls to the wall, assassin style, while still having escapability. Like, if you're gonna go in fire mode, you better do it from a distance enough. Like, you have to be at the appropriate distance where if you go in too quickly, your get out hook is on cooldown. So if you hit a Brig or McCree or whatever, you're just dead. Or if you pile drive, right, you're just dead unless you come in from fireball or from a mile in the sky without grapple, like without immediately coming off of grapple. You have to maintain your escapability. And that's not like a Bastion or a Junkrat, which they effectively do the same thing in terms of, like, if you just spam a choke, that entire choke becomes a death trap, especially at the lower ranks, which that's another thing to talk about, is each rank and their reaction time. Because really, at this stage of the game, I would feel comfortable, since I do have people on my friends list who are in, like, Masters, and I have people on my friends list, including a family member, who is in Bronze. So, like, I've seen both ends of the spectrum, plus all the YouTube videos out there talking about, you know, other perspectives and everything like that, which it does kind of give me hope for certain things. I think that needs to be a little bit harder of an edge. I think right now the reason why this doesn't look too good in my eyes is because there's no real, like, hard edges. Because ultimately this is going to come back up, and this isn't going to be the final shape of the head. But my point being with that is the general sentiment, I feel like, sometimes can just be off because people don't take into consideration the perspective of a lower rank, where it's just like, just hit that shot forehead, or just do your roll forehead. It's a lot heavier clashing of play styles, where some people know one of the 3 play styles of, like, you know, there's only been really 3 metas of rush comp, dive, or bunker, and knowing your position and what you need to be on the lookout for and what your role is in the hero that you chose is a lot more lacking on an individual scale. And so you, like, especially in Platinum, I think Platinum is the worst, Diamond maybe the second, and then Gold, only because you get a mix of different people. And right now, with how team-based the game is, if even one person doesn't understand their role to the same level as everyone else, they immediately will become the weakest link. I'm gonna make a duplicate of this. And when they become the weak link, they determine the overall strength of the team. And if the weakest link on the enemy team is weaker than your team's weakest link, you win more times than not. That being said, there is a limit to that, I feel, which would be if the difference between the weakest link and the strongest link on your team is so vast that the strongest link is vastly better than the entirety of the enemy team, there are cases where certain heroes can just dominate and take over the game. And examples of that are Tracer, Genji, Pharah, Junkrat, Reaper to an extent, Widowmaker for sure, Doomfist, Echo, and then at lower ranks as well, Ana, Zenyatta, even Lucio to an extent. And I'm not saying Brig on purpose here because Brig is terrible at lower ranks. She's an abused character that honestly needs to be looked at, in my opinion. But at lower ranks, the reason is purely, as was mentioned in one of the great debates that came out recently from SVB. It really just boils down to the fact that people don't play with each other. They don't play around each other. And as a result, they don't. The Brig is like a Sombra, where Sombra does a lot of he does a lot for the team, but doesn't do a lot individually. They set up the play. They hack a target, which allows your team to go win. They call their hacks. They communicate, and they say, "This is basically my value. I hack this target, kill them, go win on this specific person." But people at lower ranks, namely Platinum and below at the very least, they don't have focus. They don't have cohesiveness. They don't have the ability to hear that, I need to go in on this person. Let me ignore basically everything else and go in on this person. 9 times out of 10, and I'm guilty of this more times than not as well, the person that I'm targeting is the one that's closest to me. And this is something that is a bit of an issue I've been trying to kind of work on, but it's a very, very hard issue for me at the very least. And the reason is because you have to make a read on, well, who's the better target at this one instance. And sometimes that's not the easiest thing to read, especially when nothing is going according to plan or by the typical rule book, if you will. And or at the very least what your perceived rule book would be, right? Like that is just an unfortunate truth of I'm looking up a reference right now for hoods. Was that saying something about coordination? That's what's needed. It's really what's needed in order to actually utilize your hero to their full strength. And this means that there is a discrepancy between how viable certain heroes are at certain ranks. So Sombra may be broken, but that may only be at ranks where teams can communicate. And that's something I think that doesn't often get talked about is, well, I guess it's starting to be talked about a lot more ever since the whole recent debacle of the coordinator being silver or whatever, but there is some truth to the scrutiny that the devs have received, because even though they communicate very frequently to the community, it doesn't feel like they listen to they don't feel like what's being said by the community most of the time are valid reasons the game isn't doing well, right? Like, to be honest, my mindset has been and always has been the fact that the community doesn't know what's best for the game. I'm sorry. At the very least, the community doesn't know what's best for the game. Like, let me rephrase that a little bit. They don't know what's best for the game in the way that the devs interpret it. Like, the devs' interpretation of the data, as well as what people want, hasn't coincided in a way that's been helpful to the game, in my opinion, because this is going back towards when Doomfist was a hero concept and not a hero. The only reason why, according to the devs, and you can go way back for this, Doomfist was added was because it was a highly demanded hero from the community. And I don't know how really to interpret that, aside from whatever the devs were seeing in terms of like obviously what the community wanted wasn't another hero that one-shots. But the reason that we got what we got was because we just asked for the hero because we liked the lore implications of it, and like he sounded cool. And I think the devs wanted to play into that whole he sounds cool kind of mindset, which in reality is why I keep saying the whole they're basically, Warframe fans in disguise, because they essentially made a Warframe hero that just is like, yeah, he can one-shot from a mile away, basically, and then get armor on top of that, or shields, rather, to bulk his HP up to the level of a tank. Like, literally, he's the only DPS hero that I believe, with his own abilities, can achieve 400 HP. I'm pretty sure that's the case. Because, yes, if they get Lucio beat, yes, they get more HP. If they get, Rally, yeah, okay, they're going to get more HP than, Bastion can become a 450 HP person or something. No, 450 with Rally armor. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the ability to just go win, and if he hits enough people, he is literally just immortal. Especially with, the skill curve. Because, yes, he gets worse. Because as you go up in rank, the more people will be able to react to, sound cues, and be able to read, okay, we were just fairly, we just walked through for free. That doesn't normally happen. Where's the Doomfist? Thinking things like that, where's the Doomfist? Why am I not being punched in the face at this very moment? How much time do I have before his cooldowns come off and he comes in to pop off? Those are things that a lot of people at lower rank don't really think about. And it becomes this huge discrepancy of like, well, some people do, some people don't, and that's what leads to the games being like either you dominate or you get dominated 60% of the time. I'm trying to think, how does this perspective work well? Trying to create like, maybe that will be better, and then I can just do something like this. Oops. Gonna be more jaded on this side. But I think that is the best way I could describe like why certain heroes just need like imagine, I mean, okay, let me take a step back even further where the heroes, they need to overlap more, because unlike other games where you like, aside from really like any, I don't know how to describe any other MOBA, right? MOBAs don't have the issue Overwatch has of, you know, sorting by, I don't even know how to really describe it, because you can queue for like, I want to be X role, right? And that means something in a MOBA. But in Overwatch, if you say, I want to play, you know, tank, okay, there's sort of a consistency, which is why it also sucks, because if it tanks suck in general, well, you press H and you're like, who do I choose? This guy, I die. Orisa, I'm dead. Reinhardt, I'm dead. Winston, I'm dead. Do we run Wrecking Ball Diva in Plat? Do we run Roadhog Diva in Plat? Can it work? Yeah, because it's Platinum, and anything can really work. But is that right? Like, is that the game we really want? It's not like DPS where it's like, oh, okay, soldier's not working, let me press H. Ah, hey look, maybe I could try Hanzo, get some random BS headshot and just carry the game. Oh, maybe I could choose Bastion or Junkrat and just spam them out. Or maybe I can click Pharah because maybe they just don't know how to play against a Pharah. Or maybe I can play Sombra or Symmetra or Torb because they don't know how to play against these heroes. But then you look at like all of the tanks, like the only ones you don't really see that often are Wrecking Ball or Winston anymore. And even those ones you see, you know, it's like when you do see them, you're like, oh goodness, this person knows what they're doing. And if they don't, you just choose Reaper and Sombra and you just blow them up. Like, I don't know. I don't find it that hard. But if they choose, you know, if you choose Pharah, well, then you gotta hope that the enemy DPS don't know how to aim up. But if they don't, it's free SR. Like, you can literally lose the entire first round and then dominate on defense or on the next 2 rounds, depending upon the game mode, simply by choosing a new hero that maybe the enemy just doesn't know how to fight against. Of course, this also assumes that you know how to play that hero, which may or may not be true. Or at the very least, know how to play that hero well enough. Dang it. That you can consistently outperform the enemy. So, ultimately, I'm trying to think how this can connect. Because I kind of like it coming out, and then this entire area just being like that. But and then you just have Hello. You just have something along those lines of like, you know. I do think this need to cut in a little more, maybe. But I'm actually gonna take a small break because I have had a crap ton of fluid. So, I'm gonna turn up the music and I'm gonna be right back. And we're back. But that's chatting. Let's just go straight back to live, please. I've also been away from my DLive. Okay, another one's stocked. Okay. Want to make sure because I'm not the best at making sure I keep track of everything. What else was I going to talk about besides all of the well, let's get into the Bastion stuff. I already briefly talked about it, but I wanted to kind of elaborate on my reasoning for a lot of things. I wanted to elaborate on my feeling of the grenade not being the right path. I think the thought that damage dealers should be be the only category that deals damage can be very detrimental to the health of the game. I think by merely reducing that thought down to damage needs to have two components, and one of those components being mobility, would vastly improve a lot of the designs. And the reasoning I have for that is that's sort of how it feels right now with a lot of the character design, is that it's getting to the point where the heroes need to be hello on home music. Oh, thank you. It's oh boy, haven't streamed in a little bit. It is Harris Heller. He does a lot of free streaming music, so that's what you're grooving to. I would recommend go check him out. He has a lot of great playlists, and he keeps putting out new great content. And up to this point, at the very least, he hasn't made any changes on his promise of being free for streamers. So that's the reason why I play him, is because he's got bops. He's got some really good content. But yeah, I'm you caught me in the middle of just ranting about some Overwatch changes that are coming out and my opinion on it, more or less. I think the good news is that it's heading in the right direction, but it's far from being in a state that I would consider, productive in terms of like actually being competitive. But at the same time, who am I to really say anything, because I am but a humble plat who I'm actually been trying to reach out to some content creators simply because I think it would be valuable to give a lower tiered, perspective, but not just a lower, like, this is going to come off as arrogant, and I dislike that. But I have been designing my own games before. I have experience with software, and I know what's realistically feasible. And what's, would be probably too drastic from, at the very least, my perspective. And I'm not just coming up as, well, if they just could, fix this one thing that feels bad. Like, okay, yeah, but what implications would that have? And what's the next layer of implications? Like, if you fixed that, what would you need to do? And what implications would those things have? At what point does it become better to have the current issue than having the potential issues listed? That kind of perspective, I think, is something that gets, like, for example, I'm not on board with hero bans, not for Overwatch. And the reason I'm against it is purely a selfish one of it takes away from what I like about the game, or what I believe makes the game unique. I don't think banning heroes is something they'll ever want to do. They might implement it because they've implemented several things that they've not wanted to do. But I think it's the same thing. Like, Overwatch is different from every other major game out there because you can change heroes. That's the number one thing that's different. Let's be real clear on that. There's a lot of things that are similar to other hero shooters that you can make an entire genre about. But one of the most, if not the most unique thing that comes out of Overwatch is the fact that, oh, they've got a Pharah, let me switch to Widowmaker. Oh, they went Widowmaker, let me switch to Genji. Oh, they went Genji, let me go ahead and switch to Sombra. Like, you can do that in Overwatch. Oh, they went Jet. Well, I'm Viper, so I'll just hide in my, I just gotta outplay them with a gun. Like, it. They've got a composition league that just is vastly superior to ours, and unless we go a really specific build that, unless you're really good at league, you'll actually know what's going on. But just from a hero standpoint, they're already ahead because they have this hero and we have this hero. Cool. Nothing we can do about it. Like, Oh, hey, look, we're going into the building. Turns out they had the two new wops that are broken. Uh, Guess, we just gotta try to play around that and hit headshots. Like, you can't do anything about that except go GG, go next round in any other game. But Overwatch's main unique point is you get to choose heroes as well as play the hero you want. And hero bans, I feel like, not to the complete extent. I'm not saying it would end the game, but it does make it a little bit less fun. That's a bit too jagged. Like it would take away from the lower end feel. I feel like. I don't know. Maybe I'm mistaken on that. Maybe it would be better for the game health or whatever. But it's the same reason why I personally was never really a fan of role queue. But I will concede the fact that for the lower tiers, it was healthy. Because when you don't know how to play the game at a highest tier, because let's be fair here, at the higher tiers, they were already doing 2-2-2 more or less, at least for the most part up until goats hit, in which case everybody was playing goats. But they implement the devs implementing role lock. They basically made it so lower tier players can play the game without worry of, am I going to have a support? Like, I can play Tracer now in silver without essentially, throwing, because there's only going to be a Junkrat, a Pharah, a Bastion, a Sombra, and a Tracer, and maybe an Ana if you've got that one guy who's like, I'm going to be a team player, and misses every single shot because it's bronze. So it's I do think the consideration for the perspectives of lower tiers needs to be considered when things are being designed. I don't think if you're going to make a competitive game, making balances for the lower tiers is necessarily a smart thing to do. So, two sides of the coin, I guess. Going back to my original topic, though, which was moving into role passives and role, what is the point of every role? I wanted to elaborate actually on what I was thinking before of tanks not really having a purpose in Overwatch. It goes back to my thought process of getting to the root of why things don't feel fun. Why does 2CP not feel fun? Well, it's because the first is heavily the maps are designed to be defender favored on the first point and on the second point, but only on the first point do attackers have spawn advantage. So often you get this feeling of let's be fair here. You get, if you go to Hanamura, you get a kill, right, on second point. It's so they have 2 meters to walk out and be an LOS of the point, more or less. The spawn and the point being nearly in the same room is a bit of an issue. And that's something that happens almost consistently against all 2CP maps. The other thing that is frustrating about Assault/2CP maps is the design choice of the map defaulting to the first point is just a single choke. Like, there's two options. The big hole everyone can fit through, and then the smaller hole that select people can fit through. Like, why on Hanamura don't they open up the right side so that way you can go towards the second point and flank? Why on the left side is there not a passageway to the coastline? Why don't you give the attackers those options? Well, because then it would be super easy for the attackers to just, you know, steamroll. Because they have so many options, they just need a single pick, and then they can go in basically off that. Or, you know, if the defense get caught, you know, going from too many angles, it doesn't feel good to defend. Well, okay. Then, what if instead you had the defenders spawn closer? And then you just have this, like, ABC rotating thing of, like, well, the defenders are favored to be in that position. But if someone gets caught out of position due to a well-timed flank or some skill, then the attackers deserve to get that 1 point. They basically get a point every time they win a team fight. Then, when you die, you spawn by point B. And then when they capture point A, you then spawn by point C, which, so if we look at it, you know, this would be, let me go ahead and just show this real quick on, yeah, sure. I've made this image before, but let's say we're on Hanamura A, and let's say, let me go ahead and make it a little bit more. Let me go ahead and do that. And then let me go ahead and actually do this. We got A. We've got B. This is the little hut. This is the little housey thing with the coast. This is that little, like, barricade thing. This is the building, and then we look at attacker. So this is attacker A, and then this is attacker or defender. So this is defender A and B, right? What if the defender spawned here, right? Just hear me out on that. And the attackers, there's this little side room here, and then let's say this is the gateway. Here's the rock. I know it's pretty close. Just do this so I can open it up a little bit. There, let me do, making it a little bit easier to see because I'm making it more realistic. There's that building there, the little gateway there, etc., etc. So instead of just having this choke and this window, let me highlight those in red, for the attackers to get through, what if there was a passage to the coast with, you know, the high ground being over here, basically? What if they could go in through there? What if they could go in this way towards, like, the balcony area or back towards this area? What if there was more than just a single choke to go through? That's why attacking A can feel terrible. But at the same time, it's the only real saving grace for the defense. But let's say the defender spawned here for A, and then when A gets captured, then they spawn over here by B or something. Or, like, let's say there's another building over here for defenders to spawn at B, and attackers will now spawn here at for B. Like, the two big disadvantages of Assault, the things that make it not fun from a map design perspective, is having two chokes, just two, of which only one. So this is limited accessibility. This is full accessibility, the limited accessibility forces metas, basically. Because, like, okay, well, in order to get through that window, I need to be Junkrat, Genji, Hanzo, Pharah, or Widowmaker, or Ashe, maybe. Or, you know, with this high ground, you can do a rocket jump. So you could technically be Soldier, but you have to waste your burst damage to get over there. Technically speaking, well, Zarya can technically get over there as well, but it's not a heavily advised because you use, you know, you have to take damage and then you have to, you know, use your bubble. And what are you going to, you could do it, but it takes you a lot of time to rotate into that position to be able to do it, etc., etc. You can maybe use Sim to get up to the high ground, but then the entire defender team can see where you're coming from. So it's not the greatest of maneuvers. So more times than not, you want to force your way through here, or force your way through this way, and then come out and go that way, or go through the high ground, or force you, like, no matter what, the three best options, you have to come through this choke, which is why it's relatively easy to hold, and then it gets messy from there. But that's why attacking A is not terrible in a lot of people's opinions, in my opinion at the very least. It's when it comes to B, this is the real killer. The fact that spawn is so close that ML7 can get like 6 reses in the span of 2 minutes on a ability that has like a 30-second cooldown. Not even, he had it in less than 2 minutes. He had like 6 reses, probably closer to a minute and a half. So the math there doesn't work out because he could just go back to spawn, and so there's a couple things here. He can just go back to spawn, switch heroes, come back, and the ability is off cooldown again. And the reason why he was okay doing that is because Resurrect, an ability, not an ultimate, is more valuable than the ult itself, especially on second point assault. And that's a fundamental character design that this character design, fueled by the bad map design, leads to a situation that is abusable and shouldn't be possible and is stupid. On top of that, the bad map design makes it so that point B is impossible to capture unless you win 7 team fights in a row in some cases, especially because the enemy team can change heroes. So they can choose to go stall heroes. That basically it. That's the reason why Assault sucks, at least in my opinion. That's my understanding of why Assault sucks. So how do you fix that? Well, you change the spawn. That's the easy solution. However, that addresses just the map and the mode type, which is why I think one of the new modes is going to be a variation of 2CP. I truly believe that. I truly believe a variation of 2CP is coming. And they're saying that 2CP is gone, but in reality, it's not going anywhere. It's just changing its mechanics and basically rebranding itself. Best way I can describe it. Now, fueling off of that, going off that a bit, that leads to another issue, which is a fundamental hero design issue, which is supports specifically have any hero, but supports specifically in this case, that have abilities that are better than their ultimate is a red flag. I'm sorry if you like Resurrect. I'm sorry if you like Immortality. I'm sorry if you like Anti-Nade. But let's be fair here. They're just so powerful that in a lot of cases, like, I mean, to be fair, Anti-Nade to a much lower degree, but especially Resurrecting Immortality, the ability to prevent death is absurd, and it doesn't feel good to play against. especially from a competitive perspective. And I've said this before as well, but I think it bears repeating. Supports should be able to duel, but should never have the capabilities to initiate a duel. Like, for example, Baptiste puts Window down and then puts Immortality behind him. And the Immortality raises up to be hidden inside the ceiling. So he's now literally unkillable, dealing 40 damage per bullet in a burst of 3. So he can do a burst out 120 damage in the span of less than a second if he hits all 3. And that's not including headshots. Like, he can melt squishies to the point where every shot he takes as a support can kill a person on the enemy team. How is that balanced? Like, how is that quote-unquote a support whose role is to heal, right? Like, to me, that just does not seem like a good character to design, in my personal opinion. I think it needs to be toned down. I think Immortality needs to either damage absorb, so every point of extra damage you do goes to the Immortality field. So if, let's say, Bat throws it down in an inaccessible location, if you headshot him twice, he still dies, because on the first headshot, it destroys the Immortality. And then the second headshot, it's like a shared overheal with anyone within the so the Immortality's health is a shared overheal on every target within the range. I think that would be probably the most fair. Let me do this. That'd be probably the most fair way to balance what currently exists, in my opinion. And then, if we go towards Resurrect, and how can we make that more balanced, there's, surprisingly, yes, there's ways to balance it. First and foremost, what if instead of resurrecting at full HP, it resurrected at half HP? That's an idea. Or, a better one, in my opinion, make it so when you resurrect someone, it doesn't respawn them at the location. Rather, it resets the respawn timer, so they respawn in spawn, but still have to walk back to point. Basically, like the new changes to 2CP Assault, where when you die on point A, you get reduced spawn timer for a short while after they cap. That's, you know, a lot more fair than just saying, oh, your skill shot doesn't matter anymore. You know, oh, this person that you had to hit 3 different times with damage boost in nano because they were a Pharah who was just using cover wisely and being healed up by Mercy because you couldn't burst out all the damage. Yeah, they're back again. So you got to do that all over again, you know. Hopefully it wasn't too difficult for you. I don't know, maybe I'm ranting on that a bit too much, but I just truly believe that some of these things are easily fixable, if you will. Ow, my shoulder. So that addresses the support issue that I was talking about before. Another thing that I would change in Overwatch 2, just to be more consistent, is remove self-damage just completely. Get rid of it. It's ever since they changed Junkrat, it's an unneeded concept. It's a way to balance the game. I get that, but it's not worth it. It makes even other game modes like Mystery Heroes even that much better, because you can't have a guy who's a god on Pharah kill himself after he ults because he wants to stay Pharah and got outplayed. Like, not very fair, to be honest. Not to mention, it would add a lot more diversity to her kit if she can keep herself up in the sky without needing a mercy pocket, because in order to just blast herself off of a roof, which makes a lot of noise, she has to nearly kill herself. Like, I feel like it would make it a lot more skill-based if you can, surf that way without being detected. And it really wouldn't hurt the game overall, I feel like. Maybe it will. I don't know. But I don't see why it would. What else would I want to talk about? Oh, yeah. I wanted to elaborate a little bit on what I mentioned briefly last night on tanks and how I would balance them. I think the number one issue with Overwatch 1 is the fact that it's a shooter, right? How do you balance the shooter aspect of the game with the non-shooter components, right? How do you make it the strategy, the mercy plays, the game sense of a main tank player, right? How do you make that value shine through? And especially in the new era of brawly 5v5, right? How on earth can you possibly balance those? My answer to that would be, how do I describe them? What are those things called? Oh Lord, what am I thinking of? What are they called? They're in MOBAs in general that you find in jungle. They're like Heroes of the Storm as well. Mercenary camps, things like that, where essentially you have these tower-esque things, these like camps, if you will, enemy camps, but they're AI guarded. And they essentially, when they get defeated, as a ring appears on the ground, just like in a MOBA, you capture that ring essentially, and it activates a turret, and this turret deals X amount of damage in an area, or maybe it unlocks a new one team buff zone. So if the one team stands in that zone, it buffs their fire rate, or it buffs their damage, or it buffs their speed, or something along those lines. Or it summons a group of minions, waves, that the defenders have to defeat. And vice versa. There will be a button or a mob or something or another on the defensive side that either A, shuts down the camp coming in, or B, gives the defenders a buff of some kind. And this will give a balancing tool for the devs to have against, like, making the tanks deal more damage to these mobs, right? That way, the tanks can go off on a flank, because, or well, okay. It's going to be chaotic, right? Right now, as far as I can tell in a 5v5, there's not going to be a lot of rushing, but it can be an entire, plan to go capture this camp. And then it has to be the defenders to be watching main and the camp and decide, all right, we need to rotate towards this camp because they're going to try to capture it, or we're going to need to rotate back and capture our camp while they're doing that. and we're waiting on the payload. That way we can even out the buffs. And this will give the attackers some more, dynamic choices, especially if there's more than one camp to capture. And it gives, it gives DPS additional things to do, such as go and capture the enemy's camp so they can't capture it themselves. It also will make use of the new PvE systems that are being implemented into the game. I think these are ways that they can balance the game that they couldn't before, that would take care of a lot of the current problems. Ooh, excuse me. That's right, I was doing this. It was too soon to make a copy. Just merge down. Get rid of the copy on the end of this. Another thing I hate about Son Goku. Sorry. That's how I kind of feel right now. I apologize if that's how it's coming off. It's not my intention. As I said before, I do want to just reiterate the fact that I am but a humble plat boy. I can't say I think to the highest level in terms of what these devs kind of have to. But at the same time, I can at the very least point out where I think the devs could improve their existing systems. Also, I just realized I didn't want these to be straight lines. I'll have to fix that up a little bit later, but I wanted them to be semi-distorted. Especially on this side. Not what I wanted. There we go. But yeah, where was I ranting? I think these are concepts we also just haven't really considered, or at least I haven't seen being considered. I'm very much hesitant when it comes to deleting things in the game that sort of make the game, such as adding hero bans or adding anything that drastically changes it more than they're already drastically changing the game. I don't think additional drastic changes are going to fix it, I think just discussing it rationally about like what can be done, right, with what we already have and what we've already seen, and what can reasonably be accomplished is things that need to be the higher priority. Let me go ahead. This is gonna be a case of we're gonna lower it by 10. We're gonna lower it to 8. I think actually the outline is just gonna be a straight. And then what we're gonna do there is we're going to add different colors of different hues and different thicknesses, and that will be like a frayed edge there. Hopefully this isn't also coming off as like I know it all kind of manner. It's just these are my personal like thoughts on a lot of potential changes that could be implemented, instead of what's constantly like they must do this or I'm not playing the new game. Because I do personally feel like too many people they view it through the perspective of their character. Because let's be fair here, how do the devs want to balance this game? They want to balance this game around everyone's interests. What is everyone's interest? Well, this is One Trick's interest. This is support's interest and their ability to duel. This is the tank's interactivity and ability to just main tank diff the enemy team. This is the main tank wanting to just sit back on their lulls and play Orisa and just shoot like a fish in a barrel kind of simulator. This is DPS wanting to not, to be able to kill 60 meters away, one shot headshot, and just carry an entire point by opping the entire enemy team into oblivion. This is people not wanting to die to a one shot across the map from a BS angle that just because the Widowmaker decided I'm going to be at this spot and I happen to be at the same location as you, you're dead. That doesn't feel good. This is people wanting to just go win and not die to geometry of the map or people's BS stun ability. And it's also the devs having to think of the people who do want to stun people into oblivion. Like, my personal thoughts are Symmetra and Mei should not be able to slow, like, anything. Symmetra's turrets should not be permanent. They should be temporary structures that are like, they have to pick and choose as, like think of like mines, like in like the cages from Cypher or from the mines from Killjoy from Valorant. They have to manually trigger those. Same thing with Sim. She should have to like place where she wants them, but it doesn't auto lock on, immediately as long as you're within LOS and slows you. Like, that's BS. What it should do is it should, at the press of a button, target someone who's close to it for the next 3 seconds and then break after use. That way she actually has to set them up again. Like, yeah, is that a little bit more challenging to use? Absolutely. It's vastly better and vastly more fair to play against than the BS-ness that happens right now. And is this just a low-ranked person complaining about things that are, super easy to defend against or whatever? Maybe. Sure. Take it like that. Still a frustration I have, at the very least, going into these games. So I view it as something that would be a lot less frustrating to both play against, as well as, like, the concern there is that Sim was so bad for so long that people have this stigma with her. And the same thing with Torb. Like, the issue with Torb is that the ratio of this entire right side is so lopsided. The ratio of a good Torb to a bad Torb is so vast that the lower in the rank you go, the harder it is to like the easier it is, I should say, to carry as a Torbjorn. Like, if you're good at Torb, you will quickly rise through the ranks. Just because you'll hit the shots that deal a crap ton of damage and instantly burst down people, as well as having a turret will make it so you, fare well against the dive DPS who aren't good enough yet to hit all of their shots and will succumb to the poke damage, especially if you can hit them once. If you can body shot a Tracer as Torb and have the turret deal the rest, like, you're either going to force out recall, which makes the DPS essentially useless at that point, at least in that one fight, or you're going to... You're basically gonna force that Tracer to have a very, very, very bad day. And then they're gonna get flamed from their team, and that's really your ultimate goal, is to make everyone hate their teammates. Because that's how you win in lower ranks. You get the enemy team to just give up on themselves. And that's something, I don't know. That's why I'm so focused on the unfun aspects. I feel like That's the more frustrating thing for the lower ranks. And I haven't even gotten into the fact that there's a lot of issues with, in my opinion, with the rank system, especially right now with how hard it is, because it's really hard to pick up Overwatch, especially if you haven't been playing it. Which is why I agree with some people I've seen online where they're just like, yeah, that's why they're not targeting the current audience who's super niched and is basically just the remnants of all of the balance changes over the years. They're looking for an basically entirely new audience with a revitalization of the OG Overwatch launch, with whoever enjoys this new brawly style that's more reminiscent of every other game on the market, which is a fine business strategy. I'm not going to deny that. But I will have to talk more about that at a later date. I've got some things going on in the background right now. I'm actually preparing for something big. I know I took a week off like last week, but that's because I've been revamping my schedule. I've been revamping my both work schedule, workout schedule, streaming schedule, streaming plans. As you can see, I'm not playing Overwatch right now because I wanted to just be a little bit more chill. But I've got some big things coming in the not so distant future. It feels like forever away because I am at the current stage that I am. But I've got plans. We'll leave it at that. But for now, thank you all so much for coming and enjoying this lovely evening of art and creation. I do hope you enjoyed my rambling. I hope I wasn't too annoying talking about certain things. I hope I didn't go off on too many tangents that made it hard to follow. But if you enjoyed this, let me know. Leave a comment, leave a like, leave a subscribe, follow, comment, like on Facebook, all that jazz. And that would be the best way to let me know that you guys enjoy me just talking and making some beginnings of what I hope to be my OC. But until next time, thank you all so much, and I hope you all stay safe, and remember, don't get lost in the abyss.